My name is Logan, and I work as a heating technician. Pipes, boilers, radiators, that's my world. It's not glamorous, and I don't wear a suit to work. My hands are usually calloused, my nails rarely clean, and I can fix a furnace in my sleep. It's blue-collar work, but it's real. Honest. Brooke used to say she admired that about me. Said I was refreshingly grounded. Her words, not mine. Brooke, on the other hand, works in fintech. The kind of job where people wear dress shirts without sweating and say things like burn rate and pre-seed valuation without irony. When we first started dating, I didn't think our worlds clashed. If anything, it felt like balance. We joked about it. She'd call herself Ms. Cloud, and I'd be Mr. Thermostat. I used to think it was cute. Now I think it was foreshadowing. That night, we were at the City Museum. They'd rented out the rooftop for some exclusive company party. It was a warm September evening, the kind where the city feels like it's holding its breath. Glass walls, skyline views, mood lighting, and past hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce. Everyone was dressed like they were auditioning for a tech magazine spread, sipping drinks with things floating in them, herbs, berries, whatever. I stuck with whiskey. Neat. I knew a few faces from previous events, but I wasn't part of that world. Not really. I was there for Brooke, to support her, to show up, be present, be proud of her. That's not how it turned out. She was in the center of it all, laughing a little too loud, champagne glass in hand. I walked up behind her mid-conversation, just in time to hear her say, "Oh, this is Logan," with a tone that sounded like she was introducing a pet she didn't want on the couch. "He keeps our place warm, literally. Heating technician. He's great with tools." They laughed. The kind of laugh that's half polite, half entertained, and none of it kind. One guy, who looked like he still used hair gel unironically, chimed in with, "Nice. Every power couple needs someone who knows how to bleed a radiator." Brooke smirked. "Exactly. And if we ever lose heat, at least I won't freeze to death." She looked back at me, as if expecting me to laugh along. I gave a tight smile, raised my glass, and took a long sip. My throat burned, but not from the whiskey. She didn't mean it cruelly, at least I don't think she did. But the effect was the same. I wasn't a partner. I was a talking point, a novelty, something she could show off when it suited her, and downplay when it didn't. I turned my phone over in my hand, more out of instinct than intent, and saw it. A push notification from our bank app, $428. 17 Boutique Hotel Westwood. 2 guests. Paid via mobile device. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A glitch. Maybe some old charge resurfacing. But the timestamp was fresh. 10 minutes ago. Brooke had been standing right in front of me the whole time. I felt something cold creep into my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't hear anything around me. Just the muted thump of blood in my ears. I turned toward her, trying to stay calm, trying not to react. That's when it happened. She reached into her clutch for her lipstick, and something slid out with a soft, plastic click. A hotel keycard. I knew the logo before I even saw it clearly. Westwood. Same place. Same charge. She saw it too, and scooped it up with a quick, almost dismissive motion. "Oh," she said with a tight laugh, slipping it back into her bag. "That's for the partner block. We booked a few rooms in case anyone needs to crash after the event. Company expense." No one questioned it. Most of them weren't even paying attention. But I was. "Company's generous," I said, my voice low. She gave me a look, the kind you give a dog sniffing around the wrong corner. "Logan," she said, like a warning, and then turned back to her conversation. The rest of the party passed like I was watching it through glass. I stood there, still and smiling, sipping my drink as she worked the crowd. I watched her laugh at things that weren't funny. Watched her rest her hand on someone's arm, Ryan, I think. From business development. Tall, clean-cut, the kind of guy who says bro in investor meetings. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I really did. But that cold feeling in my chest was growing. I started connecting dots I hadn't wanted to connect before. I thought about all those Friday nights she stayed at offsites. The yoga retreats that didn't add up. The sudden need for passcodes and privacy modes, and do not disturb settings on her phone. But that was all for later. For now, I was still standing on that rooftop, surrounded by strangers, humiliated by someone I was supposed to marry. I'd planned to propose a toast later that night. Something sweet and simple. I had the ring in my jacket pocket, tucked into the same box I'd used when I first asked her to marry me. I thought it'd be symbolic, a recommitment before the final stretch of wedding planning. Instead, I took the box out and placed it quietly on the cocktail table where she'd set her drink. I waited until she looked over. "I'm heading out," I said. My voice wasn't angry. It was just done. "Figured you could use the room more than me." Her face changed. Not panic, just confusion. Like she hadn't decided how to react yet. "Logan, don't be dramatic." That's what she said. I didn't respond. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just walked to the elevator, took the ride down in silence, and stepped out into the night air with the clarity of someone who had just finished the last chapter of a bad book. As I walked back to my truck, I felt everything all at once. Betrayal, disbelief, and oddly relief. Because deep down, I think I'd known for a while that something wasn't right. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. Now I didn't have a choice. The city around me buzzed with life. Couples walking hand in hand, taxis blaring, laughter echoing off glass. And there I was, walking through it all unnoticed. Free, technically, but also something else. Hollowed out. I unlocked my truck, climbed in, and sat there for a long time before starting the engine. The dashboard glowed faintly, and the faint smell of coolant and pine-scented air freshener filled the cabin. Familiar, comforting, mine. I pulled up the charge again on my phone. Hotel. 2 guests. Same time as the party. Same name on the reservation. I stared at it like it would change. Didn't. The city looked different that night. I don't know if it was the rain that started while I was driving or just the fact that I wasn't the same person anymore. Maybe both. I don't even remember what music was playing on the radio. I just remember the turn signal clicking way too loud in my ears and the reflection of raindrops smeared across the windshield like static. I pulled into my driveway around 11:30 p.m. Cut the engine, and sat there in silence. Porch light flickering like always. I'd meant to fix it for weeks. Funny what things you forget when you're busy building a future with someone who was tearing it down behind your back. The house felt cold when I stepped inside. Not physically, I know how to keep a home warm. But emotionally, it was like someone had opened all the windows to let the truth in. Everything suddenly felt off. Like the picture frames on the walls weren't level. Like the silence was hiding something. I dropped my jacket on the armrest, sat on the couch, and opened my phone. That one charge, the hotel, was a splinter under my skin. I couldn't stop picking at it. The details were right there. Time, location, her device, joint card. I opened our banking history. Not for the first time, but this time with different eyes. That's when the puzzle started coming together. Over the last few months, there had been these small transactions that I'd barely noticed. Yoga studio charges on the waterfront, always around 7 p.m. Fridays, usually followed by a rideshare charge. No return ride, though, just one way. I clicked into one of them. The pickup location? Our place. Drop off? The same hotel. Same one as tonight. And that wasn't all. There were team dinners booked at restaurants that didn't serve groups bigger than 2. A reservation at a spa labeled under off-site recovery. A florist oddly expensive, right before one of her company retreats. Hotel stays listed under wedding venue tours in cities we never actually considered. At the time, she said it was part of exploring options. She even showed me mood boards. It wasn't that I hadn't seen these things. I had. But back then, I trusted her. I believed her when she said she needed space, or when she told me she'd forgotten to tag me in that picture, or when she said turning off her red receipts was just because she was tired of work clients thinking she was on call 24/7. Now, every little thing felt like a breadcrumb. Every unexplained moment was a piece of something I had refused to assemble. There was one night. It hit me suddenly, back in June. She'd come home late from a strategy offsite. Hair still damp from a shower, eyes a little too alert for someone who claimed to be exhausted. She'd walked in and said, Don't hug me, I feel gross, and went straight to bed. No kiss, no questions. That night, she left her wedding ring on the bathroom shelf. Said it was giving her a rash. I remember cleaning the bathroom the next morning and seeing the ring sitting there like it didn't belong to anyone anymore. It stayed off her finger for nearly a week. She told her friends, loudly enough for me to overhear, that she was trying out a more minimal look. She didn't tag me in photos anymore, didn't post couple selfies unless I asked. She'd say things like, "My followers don't care about my love life." But she'd still post a picture of her latte or the sunset or her coworkers at happy hour. All perfectly curated. And then there were the people. A few months back, I met one of her colleagues at a coffee shop while waiting for her. A woman named Sasha, I think. Brooke had told me Sasha was in marketing. We chatted for a few minutes. She seemed nice. But when Brooke arrived, the look on her face wasn't relief or friendliness. It was cold. Like I wasn't supposed to be there. I asked about it later. Brooke said Sasha was weird and probably just awkward. I let it go. Now I wasn't so sure. I thought about how, at company events, she never introduced me properly. I was always the guy who fixes stuff at home, or Logan, my handyman fiancé. Sometimes even Logan. You'll love him. He's basically the thermostat whisperer. It was always a joke. Always something that made me feel like a punchline instead of a person. I kept scrolling through charges. Every entry had a timestamp. Every timestamp fit too neatly into her excuses. There was a purchase for 2 Uber rides on a night she said she was at a yoga class. 1 ride to the boutique hotel. 1 ride 2 hours later, different address. I didn't know who he was yet, but I knew there was a him. That much was obvious now. And then there was the notes folder. Locked. I'd seen her open it once when she thought I was asleep. A yellow icon with a little padlock. She'd typed something quickly, eyes darting to the side like she was being watched. By me, I guess. I pretended to roll over. She turned off the screen. I asked about it a few days later, jokingly. Got secrets in there? She smiled. Just wedding stuff. Ideas. Except when I asked her to share the list with me. For reference, she said she'd deleted it. Claimed it got too cluttered. So she started fresh. With someone else. At some point, I stood up and started walking around the house. Felt different now. Less like a home. More like a place I was keeping warm for someone who had already moved on in her head. I opened the hallway closet and saw the tuxedo I'd rented for our engagement shoot. Still dry cleaned. Still hanging. She'd postponed the shoot twice. Said the weather wasn't right. Or that her makeup artist bailed. I opened the junk drawer in the kitchen and pulled out the notebook we kept for wedding planning. The pages stopped abruptly. The last thing written? June 4th, possible Napa trip with R. Check calendar. R? My stomach turned. I don't know how I missed that. She never mentioned Napa. And I sure as hell didn't know who R was. At the time, I probably assumed it was a planner or some vendor she met through work. Now I knew better. My mind was spinning. I started pacing. I opened drawers, looked through receipts, messages, even old post-its. Not because I wanted to catch her in a lie. Not anymore. I already knew. I just needed to understand how deep it went. How far back. How much of my life had been spent building something that never really existed. I passed the mirror near the front door and caught a glimpse of myself. Same guy. But not really. I looked tired. Betrayed. Stupid, honestly. The guy who missed all the clues because he wanted to believe he mattered. The guy who fixed things. Furnaces, radiators, other people's emergencies, but couldn't fix the one thing breaking right in front of him. I stood there, staring at my own reflection, and said it out loud for the first time. She's cheating on me. And the silence that followed didn't argue. It happened 3 days after the museum rooftop. I was still reeling from the hotel charge, from the key card, from the dots I'd finally connected. Sleep was a joke. Food tasted like cardboard. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach twisted. I'd been scrolling through statements, emails, and old photos like a detective who never wanted this case in the first place. All the little signs were already there. I just hadn't had the nerve to add them up. Then came the package. I found it when I got home from a job. A square black envelope sitting on the doormat like it had been dropped by someone in a hurry. No return address, no note, no delivery slip. Just my name on the front, written in block letters. Inside was a thin black folder. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were printouts, dated *TS photographs, and what looked like camera stills. It was like someone had been following Brooke for months and decided to hand me the evidence tied up with a bow. The first photo stopped me cold. Brooke, in a lobby I didn't recognize at first. She was wearing the navy dress she'd told me she was saving for a client dinner. Across from her stood a man I had seen only at a distance. Tall, clean-cut, business casual uniform. His hand on the small of her back as they leaned into each other, smiling like people who'd forgotten the world existed. The second photo was clearer. The boutique hotel. The same one from the charge. This time, she and the man were standing at the check-in desk, heads close together, a key card visible between them. Time-stamped 9:14 p.m. Friday night, the same night she told me she was at a team offsite. More pages. A cafe by the waterfront where she claimed her yoga classes met. A parking garage with both their cars parked side by side. Different days, same pattern. Then came the worst photo. It wasn't a hotel lobby or a restaurant. It was my kitchen. Brooke, barefoot, pouring coffee into a mug. My mug, the one I gave her for her birthday that said, "Still into you." Behind her, at the counter, the man in a crisp shirt, his phone plugged into my wall outlet, smiling at something on the screen. Like he lived there. Like I didn't. The timestamp was during a breakfast meeting she'd sworn was across town. I felt like the floor tilted under me. I sat down at the table, folder spread out like a crime scene, staring at the photos until my eyes blurred. Every timestamp matched a story she had told me. Every location was a lie. I flipped to the last page. A receipt from the boutique hotel. Brooke's name. 2 guests. Late checkout. Breakfast for 2. Paid with our joint card. Loyalty number attached. That was it. No more speculation, no more second-guessing my gut. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a rough patch. This was betrayal, documented and dated. For a long time, I just sat there with my hands on the table, staring at the evidence. I should have felt anger, but what I felt first was grief. Like someone had died. Maybe someone had. The version of Brooke I'd loved. The version of me who thought he mattered to her. When the grief ebbed, anger filled the space it left behind. Quiet anger, the kind that doesn't boil over but calcifies. I opened my laptop and started organizing. I scanned the photos, saved the PDFs, uploaded backups to the cloud, a flash drive, even a reserve email. I didn't want this to disappear. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew I'd need it. For the bank disputes. For the wedding vendors. Maybe even for her company. I went back through the statements again, this time cross-referencing dates and locations. The pattern was undeniable. Hotels booked during venue scouting trips. Restaurant bills disguised as team gifts. Spa services during her retreat weekends. Nearly $27,000 siphoned from our savings. All camouflaged under wedding prep. It wasn't just cheating. It was theft in slow motion. My labor, my savings, my hours of crawling through attics and basements while she sipped champagne with someone else. All turned into their secret getaways. I started printing the evidence, stacking it neatly on the table. Each stack felt like another nail in the coffin of what I thought we had. When I was done, I sat back and looked at the pile. It wasn't just proof. It was a map of my own blindness. A record of how easily someone can rewrite your life while you're standing right there. The folder had one last item tucked into the back. A single piece of paper with a handwritten note. No signature, just 2 words. You deserve. I stared at it for a long time, wondering who sent it. Someone from her office? A friend of his? Another betrayed partner like me? Whoever it was, they'd just blown the lid off my denial. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I looked around. The framed photos of us on the wall. The shelf where she'd wanted to put wedding pictures. The guest room closet where her half-packed honeymoon luggage waited. It all felt staged now. like a set from a play that had closed but never been dismantled. I realized, sitting there at the table with the evidence spread out like a legal exhibit, that I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was done. Not numb. Not confused. Done. I slid the folder back into its envelope and set it on the counter. Then I walked to the sink, turned on the tap, and splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror above the sink, my reflection stared back. Tired, older, but steadier than I'd been in days. I spoke to my reflection in a low voice, almost a whisper. It's real. You're not crazy. Because for weeks, I had felt like I was losing my mind. Suspicious, paranoid, doubting myself. But the evidence told a different story. I wasn't paranoid. I was paying attention too late. I dried my face, turned off the light, and walked back to the kitchen. My phone buzzed. A message from Brooke. Running late. Don't wait up. Love you. I almost laughed. The audacity of it. Love you. I set the phone face down and stared at the folder again. This time I didn't feel sick. I felt clear. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow I start taking this back. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I hadn't set an alarm. My body just wouldn't let me sleep anymore. My brain was running diagnostics like a machine booting back into function after months of fog. For the first time in weeks, maybe longer, I knew exactly what I had to do. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and reopened the folder. No longer to make sense of it, I already had. Now it was about action. What I had wasn't just betrayal. It was a paper trail. A series of transactions and lies so meticulously intertwined, it almost passed for a life together. I opened the banking app on my phone, logged into our joint account, and started tracing the charges from the last 6 months. The so-called wedding prep period. I pulled up statements going back to the day we put down our first deposit with the venue. That date was supposed to mark the beginning of our next chapter. Instead, it was when the bleeding started. First, there were the venue scouting trips. Brooke had insisted we consider options in other cities. Denver, San Diego, even Charleston. Despite the fact that neither of us had ties there. She said it was about aesthetic. She went alone each time, claiming it was easier for her schedule and that she'd FaceTime me from the tours. She never did. Instead, I found charges for luxury boutique hotels under her name, always for 2 guests. Each time she traveled, she'd bring back little souvenirs. Local coffee beans, a photo of a historic chapel, a scented candle from a spa she claimed was accidentally amazing. She was always full of little stories. I'd smile, listen, and never ask too many questions. I thought trusting her was part of loving her. Turns out it was just part of being robbed. Next came the team gifts. She told me she wanted to thank her colleagues for helping her juggle work and wedding stress. That sounded sweet at the time until I saw the charges. Thousands of dollars labeled as corporate gifting, but going to luxury men's retailers. One charge at a watch boutique stood out. Nearly $4,000. She said it was a group buy for custom timepieces. Except the receipt said 1 item. Premium chronograph. Size M. Engraving R. Always your B. My stomach turned. R. Ryan. I didn't know much about him. Just that he worked at her company, showed up in a few photos she never tagged me in, and once liked a picture of her in a dress I'd never seen in person. Now his name was engraved on a watch bought with my income. I kept going. Spa weekends during retreats. High-end restaurants booked during her off-site Fridays. A hotel in Lake Tahoe, a place we'd once said we'd go for our honeymoon, charged the weekend after I worked a 12-hour Saturday shift to help cover floral deposits. None of this was hypothetical anymore. It wasn't jealousy or insecurity. It was arithmetic. I created a spreadsheet. I listed every date, vendor, amount, and cross-referenced them with the photos from the black folder. Each row felt like a betrayal with a receipt. There was even a charge for a couple's massage on the same weekend. She claimed to be attending her cousin's bachelorette party in Arizona. I called her cousin that afternoon just to be sure. No party. No Arizona. No surprise. The total kept rising. $15,000, then $21,000, then just shy of $27,000. Gone. disguised under the perfect excuse, wedding prep. No one questions a bride spending money on flowers and fittings and retreats. That's the brilliance of it. She didn't hide the expenses. She just lied about what they were. And me? Paid. I worked overtime, picked up emergency furnace calls during snowstorms, drove 2 hours once for a weekend repair that barely covered gas. Also, she could order breakfast in bed for two in a hotel I didn't know about. It wasn't just money. It was time, effort, dignity. And I wanted it back, if not literally, then at least on record. I called the bank and asked about disputing transactions on a joint card. The woman on the line was polite, but firm. We can dispute charges, but if they were authorized by an account holder, it depends on the circumstances. I believe the charges were misrepresented, I told her. They were for personal use, not wedding planning as labeled. Do you have documentation? I smiled. Oh, I have plenty. She told me to submit a formal dispute with supporting materials. Receipts, photos, correspondence. I thanked her, hung up, and got to work. I scanned everything. I uploaded copies of the hotel bills, the watch receipt, the duplicate entries that lined up with her work retreats. I even created side-by-side timelines, her stories on the left, the actual records on the right. The contrast was damning. I emailed it to a fresh account I'd made that morning, Logan. Recovery 1 at Outlook. I backed it up to a flash drive, then to cloud storage under an alias. Redundancy. Safety. Next, I froze the card. She'd notice eventually, but that didn't matter now. It was no longer a shared card, just another liability she wasn't entitled to abuse. I also contacted our wedding vendors. Photographer, caterer, DJ. I asked for copies of every invoice and receipt. The florist had already charged us a non-refundable deposit. One she told me had been waived as a favor. Another lie. I didn't cancel anything yet, but I wanted to be ready. Every commitment she made with our money was now on record. And then, finally, I opened the planning app we'd shared. The one she used to organize the venue, dresses, seating charts. I checked the shared login. Still active. I scrolled through the vendor messages. One of them was from the hotel in San Diego, the one she swore we were just considering. She'd confirmed a reservation for 2 guests in her name. Not under Brooke and Logan. Just Brooke M. and guest. The guest's name? Ryan. Clear as day. I took *TS, saved them, and logged out. Then I sat back and stared at the desktop wallpaper on my laptop. A photo of us from last winter. She was wearing my hoodie. We were laughing about something I can't remember anymore. I stared at the screen until the monitor dimmed. That wasn't a real couple. That was a placeholder. A mask. A decoy for the story she'd been writing behind my back. And now I was done playing my part. She came back that morning with a box of pastries and a look that didn't match the gravity of anything I'd been through the last 72 hours. No remorse. No nervousness. Just the casual, breezy confidence of someone still convinced she was in control of the narrative. Hey, she said, setting the box on the counter. I grabbed those chocolate croissants you like. Figured we could talk. Talk. Like we were going to unpack a small disagreement. Like I hadn't spent the night organizing spreadsheets that documented every lie she'd told me. Like she hadn't turned our wedding budget into a vacation fund for 2. And one of them wasn't me. I didn't respond right away. I just gestured toward the dining table, where a neatly stacked pile of documents sat in the center. The black folder. The hotel receipts. My notes. The photos. A printed spreadsheet with color-coded rows. Green for confirmed lies, yellow for disputed charges, red for active deceptions. She froze. What is this? She asked, even though she already knew. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was still wearing the same off-white blouse from the night before, slightly wrinkled now. Her makeup was light, neutral. Her voice calm, practiced. I kept mine quieter. I know. She didn't blink. Know what? The boutique hotels. The fake venue trips. Ryan. The ring you didn't wear because it didn't match your outfit. The room key. The partner block. The retreats. I know. There was a moment, just a flicker, where something cracked in her eyes. But then it was gone, replaced with that same slow exhale she used when clients gave her last-minute changes. As if this was just another problem to finesse. Logan, No. That one word was sharper than I expected. She flinched, barely, and I leaned in just a bit. I don't want the speech. I don't want the spin. I've got facts now, and I'm not here to debate them. Her hands hovered near the back of a chair, unsure whether to sit or run. You've been using me, I continued, voice steady. Not just emotionally, financially. You used our shared money to pay for your affair and labeled it wedding prep. I froze the card this morning. I've already filed a dispute with the bank. All transactions flagged under your name, your device, or your travel will be contested. And I backed up everything. She finally Saturday, you're serious. I've never been more serious. She looked down at the table, scanning the photos, the receipts, the notes in my handwriting. For the first time, her voice cracked just slightly. You went through all of this? You left a trail, Brooke. I just followed it. A long silence followed. Not awkward, not even tense. Just empty. Then I stood, walked over to the counter, and slid her access card to the smart lock into an envelope. You're no longer on the home profile. If you need to get in, you knock. If I'm not here, you don't come in. Logan, come on. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did. I pulled another document from the pile, a printed PDF with our wedding vendor contract information. I've drafted termination letters to each vendor. I haven't sent them yet, but I will by the end of the week unless you'd prefer to do it yourself. She blinked fast. You're canceling the wedding? There it was. She really believed there was still a conversation to be had. It was never happening, I said. You already made sure of that. She stood suddenly, pushing her chair back with a screech across the floor. I don't know what you think you found. Don't, I said again. I know about San Diego. I know about Lake Tahoe. I know about the ringless spa weekends and the watch for Ryan with your initials on the engraving. I know about the breakfast in our kitchen. I know, Brooke. Silence. I also contacted your company's compliance department this morning. That finally got a reaction. Her mouth opened slightly, breath caught. You what? I sent an anonymous report with dates, amounts, and materials. I also CC'd your HR department. I figured they'd appreciate knowing how your loyalty account was used. Most of the hotel stays were charged under your corporate perks program. She shook her head, eyes wide now. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said, still calm. You did that all by yourself. I'm just removing myself from the wreckage. I slid another page across the table. A summary sheet of confirmed bookings, not by me, not for me. I also emailed the hotel this morning, requested confirmation of every booking under your loyalty number. I asked them to verify guests and checkout times. The dates match the ones you told me you were at work, or yoga, or crying about how busy you were. Her hands trembled. Why are you doing this like it's a business meeting? She asked, voice quieter now. Because it is, I said. You treated our relationship like a transaction, so now I'm closing the account. Another silence, this one sharper. Her eyes were glassy now. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or panic. I didn't care. Do you want to talk about this? She asked finally. Not now. Later. Like actually talk. No. We've been together for years, Logan. And you spent the last one of them treating me like a backdrop. I'm done being part of the set design. She looked around the house like she was just now seeing it. The picture frames, the planner on the coffee table, the empty vase by the door that used to hold flowers I brought home on Fridays. I stood, took the folder, and walked to the front door. She didn't follow. As I opened it, she called out, barely above a whisper. Do you still love me? I paused, one hand on the knob. I think I loved someone who wasn't real. And then I left. A week later, I got an anonymous message from Ryan's fiancée. She'd seen the evidence too. Turns out, Brooke had pulled a similar act at her last job. Her company launched an internal review. Ryan was quietly removed from public projects. Some charges were refunded after I submitted the documents. It wasn't revenge. It was just reality catching up. I took down the shelf meant for wedding photos and built a tool rack. Cancelled the honeymoon and booked a solo mountain trip instead. Updated my will, insurance, and finances, no more shared anything. I didn't scream, didn't chase closure. Just set firm boundaries and moved on. Funny thing is, silence hit harder than any speech I could have given.